Alright, because my demo viewer is bugged because Valve just updated CS2, and I was going to do a demo review of a player that somebody in the comment section actually recommended. I was just going to give my first impressions of what I actually think of the player, because he's on a relatively low end team. But because my demo viewer is bugged, and I don't have any topics I really want to discuss outside of this one. This one I think is a bit of an interesting one because I was having a bit of conversation, and I've seen some people with similar sentiments. And from the title of the video, you might see that it's a bit clickbait. But my point is why rules don't really matter, sort of, right? Is basically the point I want to say. And the reason I say that is because I'm not saying that rules don't actually exist. Roles very clearly do exist. People should play, specific roles and get specialized to the skill sets or to the concepts required of that role, right? Like, I'm not going to take somebody who's an A anchor and put them in con, right? It just doesn't make a lot of sense. But the point that I want to get more into is why I'm more of a skill cell, if you want to put it that way. Not a role cell, but a skill cell. Basically, the concept that certain skill sets are applicable to specific positions and that they are transferable to other positions. Um, so, for example, somebody who plays an extremity position or a rotation position or an anchor position, they'll typically have similar skills and concepts that are required to play those positions effectively, right? A cat player and a con player on Mirage have similar skill sets in terms of the rotations they make, how they play towards their site mate when they go back, right? The only difference is maybe the proactivity level, right? For example, Cat is a bit more of a supportive position to Con, right? Con gets to make more of the calls, more of the plays. Cat is a supportive position that's a bit more flexible in terms of what it can do. It can play in ladder. It can play on Cat. It can play on the 8 bomb site and play as a Joker. It can play double up in Con. There's a lot of things Cat does, but Cat is more of a supportive rotator position. It is still a rotator position, and the skill sets are still similar. It's just slightly different in terms of the way you play it, right? The way you play it is slightly different, right? And that's why I believe like a skilled player who has the skills that are similar to rotation positions will be able to play positions like that, because even though it's a bit more supportive in nature, you can play it more aggressively, right? Somebody, for example, who plays catwalk as a very aggressive position, a position where he gets very involved, is like flouzer on nuclear tigress. I was going to make a demo review of him. I actually did. I don't really like how it turned out. I might edit it down and we might end up uploading it as well. But spoiler alert, yeah, he's one of the prospects I want to highlight. But you can play your positions in specific ways that benefit that skill set, right? And the point I'm making is why I don't overly focus on roles, right? Like, for example, if you're the A anchor on Anubis, but you move to another team and they're forcing you to become the B anchor on Anubis. Is there that much difference? Sort of, because you're playing with your site mate and you need to be a little more communicative and you need to like play off your site mate a bit more. Where on A, you're typically playing by yourself. Sometimes you have a guy on camera with you. But the skill sets are similar enough of low resources. You have to buy time. You have to know how to use it utility effectively to block. These things are similar, right? And the activity level is similar as well. That's why I'm more of a believer in the idea that skill sets are developed, right? And they're more important to focus on than necessarily specific roles. Specific roles don't really matter unless in specific unique cases, right? There are very specific cases with certain players who are so elite at their specific role that they should get the role no matter what, right? You have people like Rops on Inferno Pit or Rops on B Lurk Dust 2, right? Or Nico on Nuke Yard. Those positions, they are iconic for those positions, right? And I wouldn't touch them, and I would force other pieces to move around them and to adapt because they're so good at those positions and they have such specific knowledge of those positions that other players don't have, that you force the other pieces to move around them, right? They are very specific examples though. There's not many players like that. There's not many players I would even say get that like level, right? Because the reason I mentioned this though, right? Like I was having a bit of conversation with bit of a commentator or a viewer, right? And he basically mentioned specific roles mattered for a specific player, right? Oh, this guy fits the roles a bit more, and I understand what he's saying, right? He doesn't have to change very much and all that, But the reason I recommended another player and why another person has a lot of faith in this other player for a specific high-end team, it's Spirit in this case, right? I recommended Sypho. He doesn't play all the specific roles to replace Zontix, but he plays a lot of similar roles, right? And the role skill sets that he has, right? When you watch his demos, the skill set that he has is very tailor-made to kind of replace Zontix, right? He's a little more active than Zontix, I'll give him that, but he has great spray control, amazing mechanics, very disciplined and methodical, similar to Zontix, but he's a bit more proactive, gets a bit more involved in the game. His IGL Lear sets him up a lot. Sypho and Amiga, by the way, if you don't know who he is. I probably will make a video covering a demo of his because I love watching him. He's so fun. But that's the reason I'm having this conversation, right? Because he recommended another player who was lower, who I was actually going to demo review until the demo, viewer was bugged because of the update, or not bugged but broken. And I just wanted to I just wanted to discuss this because I think this is an interesting topic, and I think some people focus a lot on the roles. And for me, roles are a bit more. It's gonna sound bad. Roles are a bit more fluid than people give credit, right? Like it's more about the skill sets required of the roles, right? And anchor the difference between A anchor and B anchor on Mirage is the difference of activity level, right? B anchor gets way less activity level, where A anchor gets way more activity level, right? You're typically A anchors is typically where you want your best anchor player, typically somebody who's very good at dealing with chaos because he's going to get popped on all the time. B anchor, you're typically playing by yourself a bit more, you're a little less active, right? Like, for example, Flamesy, right? The difference between Flamesy and Mezzy. Mezzy is more supportive, right? So he takes B anchor, it's more of a supportive position. You don't have to get him involved. But with Flamesy, he gets more involved, right? He's allowed to go con some rounds. He's allowed to play off the A site. They allow him to push ramp, right? These are things I really the reason they give him A anchor is because he can be a bit more proactive instead of B apps, which is very inactive as a role, as anybody who has played the role, right? I play the role a lot, super inactive. So yeah, I'm rambling at this point, but you get the idea of why I'm more of a skill cell instead of a role cell, and why I don't think roles matter, sort of.